Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tony Lynch, and welcome to another episode of Brief Let's Talk About It podcast. And as always, you guys know we have another amazing guest. Now, before we get started, I would like to let you know that this is for entertainment purposes only. If you are struggling or needing assistance, please use the available resources 988 or look for some local support for yourself. Okay. Now, if it's your first time tuning in, do me a favor, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you get notified every time we drop a new episode. And if you like what we're doing, leave a comment. And if you know anyone who can benefit from the conversations that we have, do me a favor, share it with them. Now, my next guest today, we keep bringing all these amazing people, you guys. She is amazing, has a lot of accomplishments. She is the artistic entrepreneur known as Marlena Zen Aste Johns. She recently decided to include what she's learned from motivating students to help teens and adults accelerate mindset changes and replace limitations with possibilities. As of January 2023, she has created 4 books, 3 of them, which has gone Amazon bestsellers, a podcast, Zenergy, and a series of workshops. So she's here today to tell her story, and you guys sit back, enjoy, and we're gonna have a great time. So without further ado, hello, the one and only Zen Ace. How we
Yeah,
doing?
Zen Aste.
Oh, okay, Zen. I said, okay, well, that's my bad.
It's all right. It's all right. Thank you. Thank you for
You're
having me on. I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Oh man, you know what? The pleasure is mine. Thank you for your time today. I know it's taking time out of your day, and I do appreciate you sharing a little bit of your day with us. You're a very accomplished person, a lot of amazing things, and we want to talk about those things about how how did you become who you are today, right? You know what I'm saying? And then we've talked before. We've had an amazing conversation, and so before we start, go ahead and tell people where you introduce yourself and tell people where you're from.
I am Zen Aste. That's my stage name and my pen name as an author, so my moniker. I am from Houston, Texas. I was born in Baton Rouge. I was a high school educator for going on 30 years now. I actually retired in January, but I'm subbing now, so I'm still a high school educator.
Okay.
And about 5 years ago, I decided I wanted to begin my exit from education. And I decided I wanted to use some talents that I had put on the shelf, poetry, performing poetry. So I became a spoken word artist. And then when quarantine happened, people said, "Oh, you have a great voice. You should do something with it," and I didn't want to lose the audience that I had built up to that point. So I
Hmm.
decided to create a podcast that was focused on self-development, self-care, and self-empowerment. And that podcast is called Zenergy. And kind of out of the podcast came the 4 books that I have right now. I'm actually working on book number 5 because
Wow.
people kept asking me, "You talk about journaling. Can you teach me how to journal?" That was my first book, A Guided Journal. And then I talked about the planner that I was using and how that helped me. And then they were like, "Well, I like planners, but I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like this." And so I tried to create one that fixed all the problems that I heard. So I created a
Uh-huh.
planner. And then they asked about my poetry. Did I have a poetry book? I didn't. And about my personal story, had never written it. So I wrote a poetry prose memoir. And then I wrote a children's book. So that's how those came about. And on the way, I also did a lot of activism. So I became the Houston organizer for 100,000 Poets for Change. So kind
Oh
of
wow.
one thing kind of came out of the other, and it kind of all led to where I am now with doing workshops and live events and having the books and merchandise and all this stuff. So
Wow.
that's
Now, have you always been that way since a kid? Because I know, like most, like for myself, I used to love drawing, right? Which led into a lot of things that I do now, creativity wise, and like you have to have a great mind to be able to do those things. But the stories that come along with it actually pushes us into those paths. Correct? I just got in a conversation with someone about this the other day. There's a process that we go through, right? Like was you always that have you had you always had that mindset when you was a child um and into teenage years and things like that?
I love to write and I love to read as a child, but I was not encouraged to write.
Mhm.
I was encouraged to read. My relatives really valued education, but they wanted me to get a real job, and they did not consider writing a real job. And
Yeah.
so I was actually discouraged from following my writing. And so that was one of the things when I decided I got divorced in 2014.
Mhm.
And when I walked out of that courtroom, I said, okay, I've spent my entire life up to 43 doing all the things I was told to do: go to school, get a job, get married, have kids, you'll be happy.
Mhm.
That did not work for me. So I said, I'm going to put all the things, all the training that I've been given from everybody, church, parents, teachers, neighbors, friends. I'm going to put all that on the shelf and I'm going to sift through it one by one and figure out what works for me. And that's when I decided to go pick off that back shelf writing and put it in the forefront, because I was like, they told me not to do this, not to focus on it. It wasn't important. I don't believe that anymore. So it was part of my recreation of myself to pick up writing, to find my own voice. I have a podcast now, but I literally had to find my own voice because I had
Yeah.
pressed it down so much trying to listen to everybody and do what I
Isn't,
was told to do.
isn't that crazy? Like we grow up, we listen to everybody because they always think that they know what's best for us, right? You know what I'm saying? Because they did it a certain way, and that's fine too, right? You know what I'm saying? Because our parents, things like that, they always want the best for us, right? But a lot of times, and I think Eric Thomas said it best. I could take your lessons, you know what I'm saying, but I can't take your ethic. And it means no disrespect, right? You know what I'm saying? I could take your work and lessons, but I can't take your ethic because you don't know what it's like to be a millionaire. You don't know what it's like to have a business or anything like that. You know what it's like to have a 9 to 5. You know what it's like to raise a family. Now, when you have a direction that you're going in, sometimes, like you said, sometimes you gotta break outside of that thing and be like, you know what? I know this is what you told me not to do, but in my heart, I know that this is something that needs to be done, and I need to, if I don't do it, then I never understand it or anything like that. And I think that's the entrepreneur mindset as well, right? And you've done many, many venues and things like that. You've been in magazines and so forth and so forth. So, what was that aha moment when you started putting things out there, and what was that journey like as well?
Well, I think, there's a saying that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Mm,
And one of the first things that I began to do was I began to listen to a lot of motivational speakers, and I was doing it really as a teacher because I was dealing with a lot of at-risk students who couldn't see getting out of the hood. Like they
right.
literally didn't see living past 18. So I was trying to get them to have a bit bigger vision for themselves, and in the process of bringing like Les Brown books into my classroom and other people, I began to actually, in a sense, see that I needed to have a bigger vision,
Mhm.
because I was seeing,
Yes,
okay, I'm going to
yes.
be a teacher till I'm 65 at least and raise my kids, be a grandmother. And that was like that was it. I didn't see anything else for myself. So the very first, I guess, glimmer was, you're telling them they can do these things. Well, what are you telling you can do?
Yeah.
And I didn't have an answer for that because I didn't have any vision for myself at all. And so that was the beginning, the first step. And then my second step, I guess, after that was picking up writing, like I said, because I had to feel safe to write. And in my marriages, I didn't feel like I could really voice my opinions very much. It was kind of shot down. So
Mhm.
once I got divorced, I was like, I'm going to put my thoughts on paper. I'm going to really put myself out there. So picking up writing and actually just being honest, writing
Mhm.
what I really felt, what I really thought, without any kind of filter, was like the first step, because I had to get honest with myself
Right.
about everything. And so I guess those were the first two steps: beginning to see a larger vision for myself and then beginning to be honest and write down all my feelings and thoughts that I had been kind of repressing and ignoring and hiding from.
Okay, definitely understand that part. But you said something, and when you said it, I started smiling, and I started thinking to myself, like, I thought I was the only one. Listening to motivationals, right? That was my go-to. That was and to listen and to hear you say it, like I started listening to them. They became my teacher. Because when we first started, right, we don't start off with a lot of money. And I don't know why people keep thinking that, what I'm saying, like we have, like, you need money to do these things. No, you need to pay attention, and then you need to have mentors. And if you can't afford a mentor, listen to things like you and I did, right? Listen to those motivationals. Listen to what they really truly saying, and then like, and then you develop a mindset, and then you come up with a game plan, and you run after it like nobody's business, right? You have to, and it was like I said, you saying that, I was like, I thought I was the only one, man, because I listened to everybody. I listened to E.T. I listened to Zig Ziglar. I listened to Les Brown, Dr. Miles Monroe, T.D. Jakes, Joel Osteen, Steve Harvey, um, geez, so many Coach Payne, all of these individuals, and that's just to name a few. Mel Robbins, right? All of these people, man, and I'm listening to it. I'm just like,
Yeah.
they all have something in common. And then once I listened to enough of them, I started figuring out that commonality. And like you said, finding your voice, because I'm an introvert, right? And just like yourself, before I got into this, I was just wandering around aimlessly, just, I don't know where I'm going, don't know what I'm doing. I just figure it out when I get there, right? No direction, no purpose, no anything like that. And it took going through something traumatic to actually begin to develop my voice. And then it took me being alone and beginning to learn about myself, right? Those things that I didn't like, I had to sit with and figure out why I didn't like them. Then I had to change it, right? And I think that's where a lot of people make that mistake. You know what I'm saying? They don't know how to sit with themselves to correct the things that they don't like. And in turn, when they get into position, they put that ugliness out there, and they wonder why the doors get slammed in their face, you know. And that's just me, you know what I'm saying? And let me know what you think about it, right? You know what I'm saying? But I think that's part of it, because you have to go through a healing process before you go through the growing process, right? Or maybe both of them the same, right? The healing is the growing, but I think the problem is the healing part is the hurtful part, because it reveals who you are, right? You know what I'm saying? And you found your voice, and it been suppressed. And but yeah, let's go back a little bit, because you got divorced. Um, Take us back to that moment. You know what I'm saying? Leading up to that, was it a bad marriage? And if I'm prying too much, please, by all means, like, I don't want to talk about it, and I'm totally fine with that as well, right?
Well,
Just curious.
my I've been married twice. So my first marriage was physically abusive, and I was in that marriage for 6 years, and I actually stayed so long because I didn't want to get divorced, because my family had long marriages. Everybody stayed married. There was only one divorce prior to mine, and her husband was an alcoholic, and so it was kind of like there wasn't a lot of support in a sense for me to leave, because
Yeah.
it was kind of like that you made your bed, lie in it kind of thing. Pray
Mhm.
about it, fast about it. It really isn't that bad, that kind of thing. So I was kind of going against tradition that you get married, stay married in that first marriage. And then I was single for a little while, got married again. And I had gone through a lot of healing in that interim period, a lot of therapy, support groups, all that stuff. But I ended up in an emotionally abusive marriage. No
Mhm.
physical violence, but was very neglectful. He was a great father, but a horrible husband. And he one of his problems was that he hid a lot of things. He didn't want to deal with a lot of things. So he came into the marriage with diabetes, but hid it from me for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even know he had it. And then he started to have complications from that. I'm sorry, with high blood pressure. I'm sorry. He came into the marriage with high blood pressure, hid that from me. And then he started to have erectile dysfunction and decided he wasn't going to treat it at all. He didn't want to go to the doctor. He wasn't going to tell anybody that he had this issue. And so I'm trying to bring things home for us to work on this issue. And you want to talk about your platform is about grief, partly. I'm grieving who I thought this man was. This man has been lying to me for 2 years about his health.
Right.
And then now we have no sex life, and he's told me he's not going to go to the doctor for this, that I just need to deal with it. And that basically that part of our marriage is over. And I'm thinking to myself, I signed up for better for worse, but I didn't think that it would be 2 years into our marriage when my sex life was over. And you're telling me you're so embarrassed that you can, I mean, I'll call the doctor and tell him what the issue is. You know what I mean? Write it on a piece of paper. You know what I mean? If you can't say it out of your mouth, I mean, but bigger than this, it's a blood flow issue, right? That's what I'm thinking. Okay, so your blood flow is constricted.
Right.
Does that mean you have a heart issue? Does that mean does that mean, right? You should want to know, not just for yourself. And I began to think this person is so selfish because here he's taken on this family. He's got a wife. He's got 2 kids. They were 6 when we got married.
Right.
They're 8 when he starts to have these issues. And you're not thinking about wanting to see them grow up. You're not thinking about wanting to see them, graduate, get married, all this kind of thing. You're not wanting to be there for them. So I'm, in a sense, grieving and trying to get him to see the importance beyond our sex life. This is a much bigger issue. And he's like, if you want to bring some herbal stuff, we tried pumps, creams, patches, herbal things. Everything worked for a little while, and then it didn't work. So after 9 years of dealing with this and feeling, we got more and more distant to the point we were like roommates. We didn't talk about anything but the kids, the bills, and the house. That was it. We didn't have any personal conversations at all. The man had not touched me, not even a kiss or a hug, in 8 months when we got divorced. So the grief again, like I'm a wife, but I literally am getting less action than, single people. I'm laying in bed next to a man that won't touch me, so that's what led to our divorce. And at that time, when I got divorced, I was really broken. Like I had lost a lot of my confidence as a woman. And I was like, okay, what's wrong with me that I keep attracting these men that don't seem to care? The first one didn't care about my physical safety. The second one doesn't care about emotionally. I'm going through all these feelings of rejection and feeling like I'm in this marriage alone. And I'm basically a single woman with a partner in terms of parenthood, but not in any romantic sense. Right. So it was very emotionally devastating to go through that. And it took a lot of years of healing to get a lot of that negative, like what is wrong with me kind of thing out of my head, so yeah, it was very difficult. So that was the point where I got to. I was like, okay, whatever I was taught, it really set me up for not a positive experience in life. So I've got to get rid of everything. And I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to start from, who am I? That's where I started. Who am I? Right. And that's literally the first question I asked myself. And I literally started to write and journal about who I was, what I knew about me, not what I was told, but what I knew about me. And that's literally where I started. And that was, again, finding my voice. So I actually put a poster on my wall, A to Z, describing myself, with adjectives describing me. That was literally where I started, but just journals. And I read a lot of books about identity and personality and all kind of stuff. But yeah, that's literally where I started, in finding my voice.
Okay. Yeah. And see, I find that interesting because I can't say anything about the last relationship, but I think there was like a disconnect with me and mine. Right. There was a disconnect. There was something that was keeping me not wanting to, but I didn't understand the psychological and emotional damage that came along with it. I am a male. So when it comes down to emotions, I still have a hard time understanding some of them, right? Because in this life, I've learned how to disconnect emotionally from a lot of things, and then plus on top of that, I do grief work, right? And so during grief work, I try not to get attached emotionally because it could take us back into a place to where, it can be very detrimental to both of us, and no one wants to do that. And so I've learned how to do those things. Sometimes I forget when I have a significant other that, hey, it's okay to leave this over here, and I'm saying, to open up your emotions and things like that, to be a little bit more aware of what's going on, and be a lot more attentive to the individual that's a part of my life and things like that. And unfortunately, I was the destructive one, right? You know what I'm saying? Um, but I had help. I had some help, right? You know what I'm saying? Because for one, and I want to get your opinion on this as well, because it sounds like you was divorced one time in your first marriage, and then with your second one, it, did you heal from the first one before you got into the second one, or was there, because I mean, I know we're all guilty of this. We tend to carry that pain over into other relationships, and then we compare, right? We compare those things, and things like that. Was that like the case in yours? And then, you know,
I mean, I healed as much as I possibly could have. Like I said, when I got divorced the first time, I went through therapy, I went through support groups. I was back in church. I did everything that I possibly could. I think that there's only a certain level of healing that you can get to as a single person,
mm,
because some of the issues that are going to come up will only come up in a relationship.
right,
So it's only when you get back into a relationship, if you kind of get to see where you are. You can think that you're completely healed, but then there could be triggers.
right,
And so, of course, I had some triggers that came out, later in that second relationship, but they were not things that I could have foreseen.
mm,
They were not, because you could only deal with what you're aware of, what what is revealed to you in therapy or in counseling. So everything that had been revealed to me, I had dealt with to the best of my ability. So I felt I was completely healed. But I actually don't believe in complete healing, in terms of, I believe healing is a journey, not a destination. And I believe
yes,
that, healing, we heal and then we get hurt again, and then we heal and then we get hurt again. And so it's a cycle. And so, if you have any kind of heart and you are vulnerable to any degree, you're going to end up getting hurt again to some level. I think that we can be wiser
mm,
in the people that we allow close to us. I think we can look for and find, and you know our intuition, red flags, those kind of things. So I think we get better and better and better at protecting ourselves and avoiding certain things. But I don't think that you can ever completely avoid getting hurt, or completely avoid the need for healing. I just don't think that that's possible if you're going to be vulnerable and open to intimate connections, whether they're platonic, family, friends, lovers, whoever.
right.
Anybody can hurt you. So
That's very true. That's very true. And I'm glad that you said that, because it was the same thing that I was thinking, and you added a lot to it, things that I hadn't thought about. Because yeah, as a male, there's a lot of things I don't think about. I try to be a little bit more mindful and things like that. Um, there was times where I made a promise to myself at a very early age that I was never going to let anybody hurt me. Now the price of that is that when you make that promise, in order to fulfill that promise, um, you don't put yourself in situations to allow yourself to be loved, and what I'm saying, it becomes a very lonely road and things like that, and in the means of protection of oneself. And I paid that price. I definitely paid that price, right? And that's the reason why I was asking, and to hear from your perspective, it was like, oh, well, that's the reason why That's that makes a lot of sense. Definitely makes a lot of sense. Sometimes I'm the toxic one. Oh God, man. The accountability, right? You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
um, and I think that's just a part of life. And I do agree because healing is it is definitely a journey, right? You know what I'm saying? I think now just to add to what you're saying, you know, there's not just one destination in healing, right? You have several different destinations. So, say for instance, you know what I'm saying, you go through a relationship, just like you said, that vicious cycle. You go through a relationship, you put yourself, you open up the doors to get hurt. And sometimes you do, right? Sometimes I've seen people get, you know, go in, they get lucky, they find the one they're supposed to be with, right? Okay, cool. But I've also been in that vicious cycle to where, oh, relationship hurt, relationship hurt. And I've made the mistake of carrying it over, right? Or holding it in. And then self-sabotaging, right? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm quick to look for the red flags. Oh, she did just like such and such did, or such and such did. So it's like I'm setting them up anyway, right? Um, and this goes back to that old saying, hurt people, right? You know, the word broken, I learned how to switch that word broken to the word hurt. And I think that opened up the avenue for me to travel down, to look for avenues of healing, right? Yeah, and the reason being, and please let me know what you think about this. The reason being, the word broken for some odd reason just had this weird feeling about it. Like whenever I said I was broken or something like that, it gave me an excuse to act broken, right? And then I thought about it. I was like, well, I'm not a thing. I'm a person. Things you can break. You can break a bone, right? You know what I'm saying? But you can hurt people very deeply, you know. And I think that's where I started making my transition over to going, okay, you know what? I have to be honest with myself. How deep am I? Am I hurt? And then I began to take those steps. Okay, I need to do this. I need to work on myself to do this. Not for anyone else, though. I did it for me, right? Because I wanted to be the best possible version of myself. Am I perfect? No. Like you said, those steps are eternal. These are things that you're going to work on, but you can begin the process to heal those different areas of yourself. But you have to, it's continuous work, right? Um, and like you said, finding your voice, doing this, and now working with kids. My question is, working with kids doing as well as doing this work, how do you incorporate that with the lessons that you teach the kids as well?
Well, as a high school teacher, I teach curriculum, but I do workshops and I do several different types of workshops. So there are some workshops that I do that are basically completely based on meditation, breath work, and in a
Mhm.
sense, releasing trauma. All right. And those are generally very short. I'm generally paired with other people and we're doing kind of a collaborative thing. So I come in and I get people kind of in the mindset of being vulnerable and being in tune with their bodies, being in tune with their breath, all that kind of stuff. So I might do 15 or 20 minutes in that particular workshop. And then I do longer, much longer workshops up to 3 hours where we're really writing and we're tapping into journaling and all kinds of different writing techniques. So I have many different workshops. So one is called like transforming pain into power. And that's
Mhm.
really about taking a painful experience and trying to, in a sense, show the beauty in it, the growth in it, how you became, it's kind of like the phoenix. Like the
Mhm.
phoenix burns down to ashes, but rises up beautifully transformed.
Right, right,
So, you know, when we think about turning lead into gold, what good came out of this experience? What strength came out of, what did you find out about yourself? So rather than focusing on the evil, or the hurt or the disappointment or whatever the negative was, you can incorporate that because that is a truth. And we're not trying to lie to ourselves, but we're
Mhm.
trying to realize that there's more to it than that.
Right.
And even like I said, I was in an abusive relationship. I've only actually written one poem about that relationship, and that poem is literally kind of a beauty, kind of turning beauty to ashes. There's a scripture that says he will give you beauty for ashes. So it's kind of that whole thing of, now that I'm on the other side, now that I'm not in that situation, let me take my power back, you know, because I don't need to give any more power to that person or that situation. That's over. I survived and I'm thriving, and I'm going to celebrate my thriving process. And so that's one of the workshops that I do, which, the people that come are ready to do that work, because sometimes it's difficult to think about certain things or to revisit certain things. I do another workshop called, basically it's about transitions. So in that workshop, we talk about the hero's journey, which is a very common story. Every adventure story, every comic book hero, every myth is focused on the hero's journey. There is a call to adventure. There's allies. There's a dark valley. There is a test and trial. There's this whole journey. So we literally go through the entire hero's journey, and we basically figure out where we are on the hero's journey. And we
Okay.
use writing to basically um, plan for the next part of the hero's journey and
Mhm.
reflect on the parts that we've already come through. And we do a lot of discussion. My workshops are very interactive, where there's a lot of, for people who want to talk. You don't have to talk, but a lot of people are coming because they want a space that's supportive, where they can voice their truth and not be judged. So I
Mhm.
kind of set up the scene to where, hey, everything that it's kind of like an AA meeting, like whatever you say here stays here.
Right. I
So
love that, man.
this is for these four walls. We're here to focus on this particular thing that we're doing, and there is no judgment. This is a completely safe space, and that kind of thing. And so I do a lot of different workshops. So those are just two of them, but basically they're all about, like I said, self-care, self-empowerment, and self-development, and using writing. So I've had drum circles in my workshops. I've had breath work. I've done qigong. I've done, sound bowls,
Mhm.
poetry. So because the arts also are a way to tap into our feelings, our thoughts. Sound is a way to heal us,
Right.
as well as make us feel more in tune with ourselves. So there's a lot of modalities that I use in the workshops that I do. So those are some of the things that I've done, working with teens and adults. I've had a lot more adults come to those than I've had a few young people, but mostly it's been adults. Hmm.
Okay. Now, is it harder to reach the teens? Because I know, doing the work that I do, I get a few younger men that come, but for the most part, it's the older generation and things like that. Because to be honest, I think it's because we realize that our parents messed us up when we were kids. I come from a Gen X generation, right? You know what I'm saying? So I'm a '70s baby, and so I was raised by the boomers. And
Yeah.
most of the Gen Xers that I know, they're like, you know what? I think our parents messed us up. They really messed us up. And so we come to, and it's a beautiful thing, right? Because I'm right there with you. And when you talk sound, it's something. It's a technique that I developed in one of my groups, right? And it's vibrational understanding and healing, right? So as sound bowls, things like that, and I learned this from studying about the Buddhist monks, things like that, how they can adjust the vibrational tune that's coming out of their mouth. I think there's a video about it too, where there was a group of them that got together and they were able to move this
Mm.
huge mountain just through vibration, right? So we think about vibration. Vibration is healing. And then the reason being is because everything, every cell, every molecule in our body is constantly vibrating, but they vibrate at different frequencies. And I associate that now. And I'm pretty sure you can relate to this, where they say a lot of motivational speakers say you have to raise your frequency, you have to raise your vibration, you have to vibrate on a different level, right? You know what I'm saying? That different level, you know what I'm saying, is going to attract things on that level, right? But you have to be open to it and understanding how everything operates. So music, and I love that right there, music therapy and things like that. And I'm still learning, right? So there's some music that I don't listen to, um, and the reason being, it can bring me back to a place where um, I wasn't a very nice person. And I think a lot of times we can get drawn into the subjectiveness of it and things like that, you know. But I'm a Motown baby too,
Hmm.
and I love my Motown. Don't get me wrong. I love my Four Tops. I love my Temptations. I love all of them, and so I do a lot of that. But I also listen to a lot of flute music, right? And I think that's the part of me, because everything that I listen to, there's different levels to it. And it's just like, wow, I listen to it, I come out that much better, right? That much more in tune with myself and things like that. And now let's talk about your stage performance. You know what I'm saying? When did you start getting on stage and doing your poetry? You know what I'm saying? Hey, where can I come and see you? You know what I'm saying? When you gonna come and travel so I can come down and be like, you go, because I'll be that hype man. I will. I'll be that hype man in the audience, like, go ahead and tell them again, girl. Yeah, I'll be that dude for you. I will.
Well, in 2018, the end of 2017, I started doing a lot of writing. Well, actually, I started in 2014. I started writing back. So had been writing for about 4 years, and then I got an option. I started doing open mics, and the first one that I did, I actually never planned on being a spoken word artist. It was like not even my thought. But I went to an open mic. I saw it on Meetup, which is an app that you can download. And I was dating this guy at a time who happened to he was formerly a photographer,
Mhm.
and we were trying to go out and do some different things. And I found this thing on Meetup where they were having an open mic, and I was like, you know what, I should take some of my poetry and I should sign up. And I went on stage and I read it because I never memorized anything in my life. And he filmed me. And the people that came up, it was actually the poem that I mentioned about my domestic violence situation, which was a very short poem. It wasn't a really long poem, but so I performed that. Well, I actually read that because I didn't know how to perform yet. But the response that I got, people were like, "Your voice is so magnetic. It's so beautiful, and we really enjoyed the poem, and oh my gosh, you should come back and do more." And he was so excited. He was like, "Oh, that was incredible." I had never had anybody just be super excited like that over my writing, of all things, because
Right.
of course I was told that this wasn't something I should focus on the whole time I was growing up. And so for him to be so excited, for the audience to be so receptive, it blew my mind. It was very addictive because I had never felt, it was kind of like when I was an athlete and you would win the game, and that rush of feeling that you felt, like you just felt unstoppable, like invincible, like just you were just almost like beating your chest. It was just that kind of adrenaline.
Right.
I hadn't felt that kind of adrenaline like since high school. Like it was like, oh my gosh. So it was
Mhm.
very, that first time on the stage, and I was hooked. I literally was gonna go back. And then I was like, okay, I wanna. And then the second time that it happened, in terms of getting that same rush, I had a DJ. He was actually also a singer and a music producer. He called me on the phone from the studio, and he was asking me, and this is actually in my memoir, this little scene, all of this is in my memoir. But he actually called me from the studio and was like, "I just saw something on your page, this poem. Like, did you write this?" "Yes, I wrote it." "Really? You wrote this?" I was like, "Yes, I wrote it." Are you look, don't ask me again. I told you I wrote it 3 times. And he was like, "Well, would you read it to me?" And then I read it to him. And as I'm reading, I'm thinking about all the emotion behind the poem, what it meant to
Yeah,
me, and all
yeah.
this stuff. As I'm reading it, like really dramatically, pauses and all this stuff. And then he had me on speaker, but I didn't know it. So there's like all of these people. As soon as I stop, is silence, dead silence, and then just like whoops and oh my god, where do you perform? No, da, 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 da. And then I'm like, oh wow. And then
Yeah.
he told me because they did a radio show,
Mhm.
and he was like, I would make you a segment on the radio show, and I'd pay you $1,000, to come in and do the show for this amount of time or whatever. And I'm thinking $1,000
Right, right.
to
Yeah,
recite my
true.
poetry. What?
Yeah.
So that actually never happened. He never paid me $1, and I never came on his radio show. We still are like Instagram friends, but we lost touch and everything. But anyway, the point is, it opened my mind. These people thought that I was worth $1,000.
Yeah.
And I never thought that my poetry was really worth anything but writing it on the paper.
Right.
So, I've been very blessed to have people speak into my life and to have people that were very encouraging after my family was not,
Right.
because I had a very limited view of myself, and I didn't see myself as talented. It was other people that got me to see myself as talented.
Right.
I kind of thought I had something, but because I had so many people telling me, nah, that's not, I, I didn't believe in myself. So I literally have to say, you just don't know how little it takes to kind of spark a fire under somebody, or
That's
to
true.
change the trajectory of their life, right? Because it was just a handful of people. I'd say maybe 10, 12 people that were super enthusiastic about my writing that made
Mhm.
me see myself differently. And then now I've got 3 best-selling books. So I have to give a lot of credit to God, the universe, the ancestors, and the people that spoke into my life, because had they not been there, I don't know what my
Right.
journey would have been. Maybe everything would have happened because it was supposed to happen, because it was destiny. But I went 43 years and didn't write anything hardly. You know what I mean? So I can see, and now I'm 50, 53, and I've released 4 books in 3 years, so it just shows you how small changes can lead to big results. And that's one of the taglines of my podcast: a
Mhm.
small change in getting up on stage, which is scary, but it's just a small thing. It was just one time.
Right.
I didn't know that that was going to change my life. Reading a poem over the phone and somebody telling me they would pay me $1,000. I didn't know when I read that poem over the phone that that was going to change my life, that I was going to see myself as a person who could get paid to perform.
Right. Wow.
So it's just, you know, and there are other people that might say, well, there are a lot of people that get told things and they don't do anything with it. So you're the kind of person who actually says, maybe I should do something about that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So that there's that
Educate.
too.
Yeah. And not
But
listening to the naysayers.
right. Right.
Yeah, because I'm right there with you, and listen to your story. Like I think we talked about this before. It's like we just live in two different sidewalks, right? Except for your sidewalk is over here, I'm over here, and you're going through the same things. You know what I'm saying? Primarily, I'm just going at it in another on another side of the street, right? The naysayers, those was always fun. How many people told me, "Oh, you may not." I love this one. You may not be successful at this, Tony, but you're going to be successful at something else.
Mm,
I love that one. I always love that one. Another one was, why would you want to do something
mm,
like that? I sit back now because if you allow it, um, and I talk about this a lot too. Imposter syndrome, is real. It's real. If you allow the negative thoughts to come into your mind, you could talk yourself out of your own success. You know, and just like us, if you listen to a lot of motivationals, the one thing that they consistently preach, and it doesn't matter who you listen to. There's a couple things, but you know what I'm saying. You got to get the strong facts out the way first. You got to learn how to get out of your own head, and then you have to learn how to get out of your own way. Right? Stop listening to the voice inside your head telling you you can't. Right? Because underneath all of that, there's another voice that's saying, "Hey, why not?" Right? And you have to be able to dig deep down inside of that to pull that voice out and let that be the more dominant voice that you're listening to, as you begin to go along this process, this journey, and not to focus on the destination and things like that. It's just like yourself. Having people say, "Oh, I'll pay you this, that, another." I used to look at it as a disappointment because I used to take it personal. Right now, when people say that, I just look at them and go, "When we get to that point, we'll do something." But until that time, I'm not going to look too far into it, because just like most things, people can talk a good game, right? You know what I'm saying? And that's the fun part about it as well. Now, magazines. How did that come about? I mean, because now I'm listening to your success. I'm going on the journey with you. Freaking amazing, man. Freaking amazing programs. You're helping children out. But now you're getting into magazines and things like that.
Well, I actually had people start reaching out to me through social media wanting to interview me because of different things I was doing. I was doing a show called Laughs and Lyrics. I created a poetry comedy music show, which was kind of a unique thing because you could go to a comedy show all day long. You can go to a poetry show all day long. You can go to a concert all day long, right? That's very common to see that separate. And I really wanted to have kind of like the variety show that you would see on TV, right? Where you would have, because I grew up with those, like the Jackson 5 had their show, or
Yes,
the
yes.
Osmonds had their show, or even Carol Burnett had her show. Now, they didn't have really any poetry in it, but it was mostly music and comedy. So I was like, I'm a poet. But a lot of people don't like poetry, or they wouldn't come out just for poetry. But if we had poetry, comedy, and music, there would be something for everybody. And
Right.
we could have, whenever you had too much, like you got tired of this, we're switching it up. So it would always be fresh. It would always be new. It would be fun. You would just never know what to expect, So I just thought that there was a lot of positives to doing that. And so there's a lot of people doing it now.
Yeah, yeah. You set the pay, the way,
Yeah,
girl.
but
Shoot.
in Houston anyway. So I did that. And then there were some people that wanted to interview me about it, like how did it get started and why were we, and we used it as a platform because what we noticed is that kind of like We Are the World, right? We Are the
Right.
World raised so much money for whatever the cause was. People don't even remember what the cause was, but it was a song that was used to fund things. So when we got people together, sometimes we would ask them to do, bring coats during the winter for the homeless, or bring blankets, or bring school supplies, or bring canned goods, or whatever. So we ended up using it to push a lot of initiatives. And so that's kind of how it kind of, I guess you could say, grab the attention of people in the Houston area and beyond. And they would be like, well, what are you guys doing in Houston? And why are you doing this? And how did this happen? And how did that happen? And so that's how I ended up getting interviewed in some magazines. And it even ended up on international TV. I ended up on TV in Russia.
All right.
Because I was this person jumped in my DM. You think it's crazy people and scammers, but every now and then it's a reporter. In my case, so yeah, this person interviewed me on Russian TV because we were doing a run for Ahmaud Arbery, and then we were doing some different marches for different people. And so I ended up on Fox 26 News. I ended up on Russian TV talking about just basically about why we were doing these things and what was the significance behind them. And so that's how those things came about. And because of all of the different things that I ended up involved with, and it wasn't just me, of course, there are many activists in the Houston area, many artivists, art people who do activism. So I was a part of lots of different groups, but I ended up getting a congressional award for activism, several years back, because of a lot of the mental health initiatives that we had, where we were trying to get people to come to shows so they could get connected with mental health professionals who would be doing little motivational speeches, in a sense, in our shows, and getting people to sign up for therapy. And that was kind of considered a unique way to get therapy to the people who probably most needed it and would least go.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so that was one of the things that we did in the city of Houston. And so there was like I said, it was just a lot of different things. I think that I might have a little bit of ADD. So I end up combining a lot of things and seeing a lot of connections and maybe other people don't see. And so that's kind of how things happened in my brain. And I wasn't the only one. Like I said, I've had the ability to connect with a lot of people in Houston and beyond to coordinate things, so that's something that happened.
Yeah, I love that, man. I definitely love that. Now, do you travel and do your work as well? Like
No, I have not. That may be in the cards,
okay.
but as of right now, I have been on virtual panels. I've done virtual radio shows and things like that.
Mhm.
But I haven't done any physical in person where I traveled somewhere else. The most I've traveled is like an hour away, you know. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Now, how can people find your virtual stuff if they want to catch one of your shows? Or if they're ever out in Texas, where can people find where you're performing and doing your work?
Well, there's a link tree under my name, and I always post the upcoming events because almost every time I do something, it's through Linktree.
Hmm.
And I put Eventbrite tickets. Sometimes it's free events, sometimes it's paid events, but the tickets are always on my Linktree. I will have some workshops coming up in January, some writing workshops. I'm actually going to have an activist writing workshop that
Nice.
is called Take Action Write. And that's probably going to be a hybrid one where I'll be teaching in person, but they'll be zooming it out to people who get the link and have
Okay.
paid for the workshop. So I'll be adding that to my link tree probably within the next week, so people will be able to see it next week because the link is active and everything. I just got to get it all on my link tree, and I haven't done that yet. Yeah.
Understand.
Um,
Understandable.
yeah. And I
I
do
can
have
do.
books if they like, I have 4 books, like I mentioned. I have a planner called the
Okay.
Ultimate Me
Ultimate
Planner.
me. Okay.
And
I
this is
like it.
undated. It takes you through the whole year. It has agenda pages in there. It also has reflection pages for each week, journaling
Mhm.
pages for each month, a lot of self-care, self-empowerment, self awareness, self-reflection tools in there. I have a guided journal. This is the very first book I wrote called Energize Your Life. This is very small. It's 29 pages. So it's
Okay.
basically 29 different concepts. It actually goes with my podcast. The planner does too, because the journaling pages actually go with my podcast. I have a children's book called You Are Wanted and Loved Because You're You.
Oh, I like that. I definitely like that.
And basically, the cover kind of tells you the message. You see that there's, whether it's sunshiny, whether it's rainy, whether it's at night, you see the rainbow there.
Uh-huh.
Basically, no matter what's going on in your life, you are loved, you are wanted. And it's
Right.
just because you are you. You don't have to earn love. You can't lose your worth. You were born with worth. The very fact that you exist is your proof that you're worthy. Your fingerprints, your voice print, that is unique. Nobody else in the world has it. Your DNA is unique. And those are your signals that you are unique and you're irreplaceable. And so that message is in the book. It's actually an illustrated poem, and there's affirmations in the book. And then this is my personal healing journey called Plenty of Guppies and Other Dating Misadventures, Lust, Loss, and Lessons of Love, from 101 Dates, a memoir told in poetry and prose. So this is 26 chapters. 12 of the chapters are on my podcast audio. So I'm actually working on the audiobook right now. So I'll eventually have the whole audiobook out, but you can listen to 12 of the chapters for free. And I'm actually working on a sequel to this book that follows up with I found out that I actually had ended up in a relationship with a narcissist. And so I'm pulling from this book some of our conversations to show people what certain things look like, what gaslighting looks like. Because here you see it. And the person that turned out to be the narcissist is a character that, well, a character, he's a real person, but in this book, he's got a nickname. So I'm calling him a character. He's a character that everyone loved. They thought he was just amazing, you know? And so the fact that he turns out to be quite abusive later, after this book was released, is going to kind of show people how someone can be the perfect guy in many people's eyes and then turn out to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in basically that whole thing. Yeah. So the people who've read the first book and were like, oh my gosh, he's so dreamy, they're going to be like, oh, you know, and they're going to get to see kind of how he was sowing seeds in the first book that ended up bearing fruit in the second book, which, you know, things that happened the 22 months after that book came out. So I'm actually working on that sequel right now, and it'll come out sometime in the future. I don't have a release date yet, but we've edited. It's 20 chapters. The sequel is 20 chapters. The first book is 26, and we've edited 14 of the 20 so far. So it won't be too long. You know, I hope to have it out before, you know, January 1st, but we'll see.
Okay. I'm not making I need some copies. I need some signed copies, you know, because you done got me over here like, what? Because you know I like a good romance mystery novel, you know what I'm saying, with all the dramatic pieces and spices to it as well. Because it's very dramatic. It's, you know, people are
you know, when I would do my poetry, people are like, your life is so interesting, you should write a book. And there was one guy, one of my best friends, who I actually have lost you know, track of because he lives in Cali. For 6 years, he was telling me I should write a book, I should write a book, I should write a book. And then finally I did. And I was like, I wrote that book. You kept telling me I should write.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I can't wait. And, you know, you can find those on Amazon as well, or do you have?
Yeah, all 4 of those are on Amazon. Yes.
Okay. All right. And so I always have to ask my guests, you know, as we begin to wrap this thing up, you know, if you could leave the audience with something today, what would you leave them with?
Well, I would leave them with the fact that you, through your mindset and through your choices, have the ability to remake your life at any time. And that what's happened to you doesn't define you. You can overcome it and you can change where you are, because, you know, I've done it. Many people have done it. And it's just, you don't have to figure it out today. Just take the first step in the right direction, the direction you want to go, and believe that the next step will show up or will be revealed to you when you need to take the next step, and just keep taking steps until you get to where you want to be. So I hope that my story is inspirational and that people realize that I'm not doing anything that anyone else can't do. You know, everybody can move forward to their ideal life, just one step at a time, one choice at a time, one mindset change at a time.
Love that. Definitely love that. Now, how can people find you?
You can Google me, Zen Aste, Zenase. That's two different words. But I do have a link tree on the screen. And so Zen Aste Poetry is on Instagram. Zen Aste is on Facebook. If you Google Zen Aste's books, you'll see them on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. I even am in Walmart now on their walmart.com. It's not physically in the stores, but literally
Oh, I'm about to be
walmart.com.
like, I'll go to
Find
Walmart.
my
Don't you
book.
tempt me.
Yeah, on walmart.com, or at least you can find my memoir.
Okay.
So if you Google me, you should be able to find my YouTube. I have YouTube videos up. I have the podcast is called Zenergy, Zennurgy, and that is the urge for more peace and fulfillment in life. So you can find I have about 122 episodes out, and 12
Okay.
of them are episodes, chapters from the memoir. So you can listen to that. But that's
Okay.
how people can find me. So
Now, is your podcast on? Are you on all platforms?
yeah,
YouTube?
I stream on about 25 different platforms. I have very few episodes. I think I only have about 39 of the 122 episodes on YouTube, because YouTube is, even though I videotape all my podcasts, releasing them, I'm so far behind. I'm so far behind.
Understand?
Yeah, I'm,
Look,
I'm
that's
much
why I
better with
stream it
dropping the
through it.
audio than I am with the video.
Okay. Okay. See,
Yeah.
that's why I stream it through YouTube. I'm like, look, at least I know it's up there. The rest of it, like Rumble and things like that, I'll go up and upload it to Rumble a little bit later, and
Yeah.
things like that. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
for being
having
such an
me.
inspiration. Thank you for the work that you do. You know what I'm saying? I look forward to reading your books and hearing about your poetry and things like that. And yeah, I just look forward to having more conversations with you as well. So, and thank you for your time today and being on the show. That means an awful lot.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And for everyone who have tuned in or will be tuning in as well, her links and everything it's going to be in the description. So please, by all means, let's support her. And if you're in the Texas area, go and check out her shows. Tell her that I said, hey, tell her Tony said, hey, you know what I'm saying? I'm here and things like that. She may remember me, she may not, but we're gonna get it
I
out
will
there, right?
definitely remember you. Could I make one announcement? I almost
Yes,
forgot.
yes, yes, please.
Right now, if you go on Goodreads or if you go on my link tree, I am doing a giveaway, a Kindle giveaway
Mhm.
for my children's book and
Okay,
also for my memoir. And
okay.
I just showed it upside down. Okay. Yeah. So you can go on there on Goodreads. Goodreads is one word, Goodreads all together.
Mhm.
And if you go to Zen Aste, I'm doing a giveaway on both books through the 21st of December. So if you register and you have a Kindle, 100 free copies are going to be given away. And
Okay.
so, yeah, so you can register for that, and hopefully you'll be the winner. And if you get a copy, please, read the books and do a review. I would love to get a review,
Yes.
from your feelings on the books. But yeah, that giveaway is going on. That's my Christmas gift to all the readers that have supported me for the last several years. And I wanted to do a Goodreads giveaway. So
Wow. Yeah. Again, truly, truly amazing. I'm definitely going to go there because I need to read that. I need to read that. Tony need that in my life. You know what I'm saying? I need that in my life. But again, thank you for sharing everything with
thank
us,
you.
man. Thank you for sharing your work. Such an inspiration. And I look forward to having many more. We got a lot of things coming up as well. Some things may interest you, and we'll talk after we go live. Um, and for everyone who have tuned in, do me a favor if you haven't already, head over to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode. And if you like what we're doing, leave a comment, tell us what you think, and if you know anyone who could benefit from these conversations that we have, please share it with them. I am Tony Lynch, and this is going to conclude another episode of Grief Let's Talk About It podcast. And I want to thank my guests for being here today. And for everyone else out there, until next time, you guys keep your head up and just remember, one step at a time. It's not how fast you go, it's what you do when you're doing it. All right. And catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.